out?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I would certainly print them out. And this is actually what I'm asking you to do with this document is going to be something that you would have your own ELAR students do with their texts that you need for them to analyze, that you need for them to study and learn from. And so each of these standards, is combined and made into the competencies. We use the standards because they are a more detailed account of what you should what you should know and the things that you should be able to do. And that's what this document is about. This document is about all of the ELAR 7 through 12 standards that you need to know and the skills that you need to be able to do in your classroom. So I would go through this and with each of these, like for instance, starting with standard 1, read it and in your own words, sort of like encapsulate what that standard is mostly about, right? So you are in your own words dialoguing with the text. So standard 1 is about knowing how to design and implement instruction appropriate for each student. That means special ed, that means English language learners, that means gifted and talented, that means 504 students on a behavior plan, whatever the student is, we're designing and implementing that effective instruction appropriate for each of them. The other big part of this is your knowledge of the TEKS. And so that ends up being a really big part of what you should study as well. I'm going to erase this real quickly. Integrating all components of English language arts, that listening and speaking skills, oral language proficiency, reading and writing, viewing and representing. Those are the overarching categories within the English language arts as a content area. Listening and speaking, which is our oral language proficiency skills, reading, writing, and then being able to view visuals, messages, and interpret it, and also representing also a message with an image or a picture or a painting or a meme even now, right? Because memes could be representative of like ideas, political movements, and those are the types of things within the English language that we study. All the different types of messaging. That is what standard 1 is about. So I would say it's about instruction and implementation of the TEKS in order to make sure that we're hitting oral language, reading, writing, viewing, and representing. That would be in my own words, what standard 1 is about. Now, you would do that for each of them, but you would also go to the standard itself. And this is really where I would write my rewriting of it. But you want to, sorry, I'm trying to make this a little bigger. There we go, not too big. Same overarching goal with instruction, implementation of that instruction, and integrating the TEKS. So on the left-hand side, you have what...
I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. I have dogs too. So on the left-hand side, you have teacher knowledge. These are the things that you have to know. Go through all of the standards and everything on the left-hand side with a fine-tooth comb, making notes, things you know what it's about, like what they're referring to, write a little bubble what they're referring to. If you don't, that's no big deal. There's no shame in not knowing something. There's only shame in knowing that we don't know it, pretending like we do, and not investigating further, because that limits what we're able to do with the students. So we need to know strategies for organizing and learning environment to promote student engagement and learning, to accommodate, these are important things, diversity. And I have some videos that explain that with PPR. I'll send those to you, that way you can watch them, but really about, and that's what this is about. And that's what this is about. This is discussing pedagogy. So it's about the pedagogy that is specific when we're talking about English language arts and reading. And we know that getting the engagement, getting the participation, organizing our environment in such a way that students that are from diverse populations feel like ownership, like they feel like they're a part of, not just someone who walks through and is stuck in this place that isn't for them, that they feel like the environment is for them. And it helps. The more we uplift diversity in our classroom, the more we showcase it, show it, try to bring in different works. Like, let's say I'm an English language arts and reading teacher, and I have 2 students, ELL students from Nigeria, right? I'm going to bring in some pieces of Nigerian authors. There are some of my favorite novels are by Nigerian authors. There's one called The Fisherman. It's this beautiful, tragic, wonderful story about a group of boys that grow up in Nigeria near a river, and they're forbidden to go to the river because, like, there's crime sometimes at the river and people trying to, doing all sorts of stuff. They're not allowed to go. Well, these boys become fishermen and they actually get involved in some bad things. But it's an amazing story. I would choose different parts. We have to find ways of validating, uplifting the students that we have that come from diverse populations. But and so in doing that, we help engage them, we help give them confidence. They're able to see the classroom as like theirs, which makes it so much more different for the learning experience. And at the same time, in highlighting these other diverse cultures, diverse pockets in even American culture, we are acclimating our students to the wonderfulness of diversity, to like its amazingness, and showing them how beautiful other cultures are and how much we can learn from them. So left hand side, things you need to sort of investigate and make sure that you know. And on the right hand side, things you need to be able to do. What can you do? It is you taking this and applying it into the classroom. Now, it has been my experience that most of the correct answers on the exam are going to be the English language arts and reading teacher doing something from that right-hand column, from this area. They'll be trying to promote students' understanding of situational nature language use, the value of knowing English, fostering pride in their own language background. So it would be a teacher doing something to promote situational nature of language use. All in different situations, different language is appropriate and necessary. And like how, knowing that and knowing that nuance, building that sense of pride and in their own language, if they're ELL as well. Let me see. Using various instructional methods and formats. That's what these are examples of cooperative learning groups. Cooperative learning groups always have to be carefully crafted. No, the days of, okay, guys, everybody get in groups of 4, find your partners, that is done. We have to be very mindful that we are choosing groups that can benefit from their interaction, right? That we have some, like maybe students that are ELL students, a student in a group with native English speakers, so that they get that practice with oral language proficiency, listening to native English speakers and their peers speak about the content. No, Marco. Different learning centers, different areas in the room of concentration where you can go focus on particular skills. We typically see learning centers more in EC through 6, right? Especially in our ELAR, like it's, they do maybe the iPads and they're working on morphemic analysis, which means that they're decoding and dissecting words into their word parts and playing around with that. The next one might be like silent reading, their little like silent reading area. And the next one might be like, so having little learning centers where the focus and function of that area helps with a specific skill, and the kids can like, move through those. Peer assisted learning. We use peer assisted learning so incredibly often, and we should all the time. But even like a revising and editing type situation would be considered a peer assisted learning, right? You're taking each other's work, you are assessing it, and then conferencing with them on the needs of the writing. An example of peer assisted. Flexible grouping, we should always have flexible grouping, meaning if you're seeing that like possibly your ELL student that's a beginner is not really flourishing, or that's intermediate, you can make the changes necessary in order, like for, I guess what it means with flexible grouping is like, think about the groups, decided them as like these don't work, play musical grouping, right? Like, and make it work for your groups. Didactic teaching, kind of like paired teaching. No, Marco. Inquiry-based learning, where you ask them questions, and we can use inquiry-based learning pretty easily in ELAR. It's easiest in science to use. I mean, whole curriculums can be built on inquiry-based. No curriculum, because science is just about asking questions. Why does this happen? And like, science, the hypothesis is just a scientific question. We can sort of have poignant questions for the, let's say, student learning groups, or for even the learning centers, where they have to answer questions about their reading and investigate, and that is inquiry-based learning, like reading the actions of Edgar Allan Poe, or like the narrator in Edgar Allan Poe's A Telltale Heart. Like, what can we or like what characterization can we make about him, like as a person? And they would have to find evidence, and so that question would help them learn about characterization, about supporting evidence, supporting their assertions with evidence from the text in a group setting. And so that's a way we can utilize questions to have them ask other questions and come to a consensus. Literature discussion groups, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory. So, but what I'm doing is I'm modeling for you how you would go through. And if you don't have like an exact idea of what, for instance, didactic teaching is, we can just very quickly, oh my goodness, that's still open. Hold on. Clear all drawings. It doesn't let me move away from it until I put away my drawing tools. I'm a terrible speller, my goodness. I was literally just looking at it. DID. Tight chain. Okay, so didactic teaching and how it's different from pedagogy. So teachers can use teaching, blah, blah, blah. Didactic teaching, which is one of the two main teaching disciplines, is structured and focused, right? Structured and teacher-focused method centered on teacher delivering. It's teacher-centered, like you are teaching, you and the students. And then you have sort of student-centered instruction, where you aren't the center of attention for or like the main go-to point. What we want instead, and I'll show you a picture that's like didactic, like sort of illustrates didactic and student-centered better. But like here, think of like every student individually. And it's like the teacher contains all of the knowledge and experience, and they're just like, it's you between the student, you between the student, you between the student. But it should never be just that way. It should be, yes, there is didactic teaching going on. There's no way you can get away from it. You have to give modeling, you have to give direct instruction, especially for like vocabulary. Like vocabulary needs to be direct instructed. You need to teach the definition, help the students come up with their own definition or in their own words, show them examples and like discuss synonyms, antonyms, all that stuff. So it has to be in some form or fashion this way, but it should look more like this, where we're not like the grand masters of all knowledge and experience that is important. Our students, and I learned this every single year of my 15 plus years of teaching my students in public school, and then for the past 8 years teaching teachers. People and children are people just the same as adults, have a wealth of knowledge and experience and beliefs that they bring to the classroom. All students come with that. And so this model really is a limited use of the many manifold resources that we have in the classroom. Individual and collaborating student working on his own. Maybe this person works real better and they just have to do this. These people are over here and this, and the knowledge is being created, the experience is being shared, and so student-centered. That's what I mean by doing a deep dive of your standards. But also you have to, Victoria, here we go. Also, take a look at your TEKS. So this is, you have access to this. So here are your TEKS, and you'll be going to middle school and high school, right? Because it's 7 through 12. But I always suggest, and when you go through this, what you're going to want to do in order to study, to better prepare, is to read through this and very much like you are annotating this text, sort of what is the overarching idea or goal for 7th grade ELAR? How does that differ from 7th grade to 8th grade? And you'll see these categories that remain true from K through 12. When they start in kindergarten, they're going to be developing and sustaining foundational language skills. They're going to be doing a lot of it, actually, because it's heavy on that. You guys are going to be doing the late part of it. Go through each of these, make sure that you understand the main important skills and knowledge for each of the grade areas. So the main difference between 7th grade and 8th grade, the main difference between 8th grade and 9th grade, right? What is sort of oral language proficiency holds a pivotal role in school success. Oral language proficiency is your ability to listen and speak well, that you have vocabulary enough to listen to someone who maybe has a high vocabulary, identify what they're saying, and articulate a message back on a commiserate level. That comes with speaking to people, being into contact with and being instructed with new vocabulary. Practice utilizing that new vocabulary in many, many organic and contrived speech opportunities. And that's something that we always try to maximize in our English language arts and reading classes. And now I started teaching in 2003. 2003, 2004 was my first year on record as a teacher. Long time ago. None of the other teachers ever had to talk about, like, you guys need to have your students talking, you need to be talking about your content specific stuff, have your students talk to each other about their math, what did you just learn? But we need to, they can't just be talking in their English language arts class. That's not going to be enough to raise their oral language proficiency to be able to leave high school as 12th graders and go out into the workforce and go out into the university, and to be able to ask the right questions, to understand the things that are being said to them and know who and what to go. So it does play a pivotal role, not just in school success, but actually in success after they leave class. We need them to be good thinkers and proficient speakers in science, in social studies, in math, in fine arts, in reading, writing, technical, whatever it is that you throw at them. We need them to be able to have a point of reference and to be able to intelligently speak on that. And so it just so happens that our classroom, the fact that we get to read so many different types of text, that we can present opportunities for the students to practice listening and speaking in many different of those areas. That's why it's listed directly in our TEKS. But it's still now the responsibility of all teachers. So that's nice that everybody sort of has to help with the language business. Okay, so here you have, and now all of these are fair game. You know what I mean? Like they can ask you a journalism question, because if you, from here, well, actually they might not be able to. Let's take a look at what is available for independent study is one for sure. And this one might also be.
Yes, I saw a lot of questions about media.
Right. And so this is where that's where they get you, because I mean, it's sneaky. This is not even in like the traditional ELAR TEKS, right? But go through this and make sure that you are, for instance, evaluating persuasive techniques that the media uses, right? Glittering generalities, associations with personalities. I mean, there's so many examples. Kim Kardashian sells a million different stupid things, and like they sell because it's Kim Kardashian saying, have this skinny pop that makes you starving, or like makes you think you're not starving when you are. And we need to, first of all, it's important to learn these, but they need to be conscientious consumers, to be like smart adults, better parents when they're older. They need to know and be able to identify these things as they see them in print or in ads or on, social media. So I would look through these and make sure that you have a working reference. I just gave you an example. It's where we try to sell a product or an idea or a belief by associating it with personality, with clout, if you will, now, because it doesn't have to be a celebrity. It could be a sports person. Right now we're seeing all sorts of ridiculousness with Trump. And so just an association with a particular person can carry power and skew a message, be a persuasive technique above the small fine print. So going through these, making your notes, looking up anything that you can't, like I just did right now, and give an example of, sort of talk about it as though you are going to instruct it. Just look it up, no big deal. Write a little short blurb about it on your notes, and then move on. Write them on your standards, because all of these things are cross-referenced on your standards, right? Everything that you are responsible to teach and know is laid out for you here in the standard, and we'll look at standard 2. So for this one, if I were going to make the generalization, I'm going to write it here. For me, standard 2 is all about the process of reading and teaching students to apply the processes of reading. How do we learn how to read? How do we get better at reading? What types of reading? Like, what strategies do we have to help us understand reading? So it might also be down to like phonemic awareness, right? Them knowing how to like dissect words, decode, using root words, prefixes, suffixes. Again, reading skills and strategies, and this is important because most of the other types of reading they're going to do in like literally all of their other classes is going to be non-literary. Like the only place they read literary text is in ELAR, where we read stories and mythology and novels. Everything else in the world essentially is non-literary. The newspaper, the magazines, the ad for a job, you know, the stuff that they read in their science class or history class, all of that stuff, non-literary. So it is so important for us to get them more comfortable with non-literary texts, because most students don't like them, but it's just because they haven't been properly taught strategies specific for non-literary texts. It's different. It's a different type of reading. And so there are different strategies to doing it and understanding it and being able to sort of digest it better. So we have textbooks, and there's a particular way in which we can easily access information in textbooks, right? There's headings, subheadings, there's like the back area, why am I, the glossary, the index, you know. And so 7th through 12, especially in 7th grade, because if you think about it, EC through 6, which is elementary, EC through 6 is not really heavy on the textbooks. It's not the type of like, go home and read chapter 3, or you and your partner read this chapter and identify important points. Like, that's where we're trying to get to in 7th and 12th grade, 7th through 12th grade. And in order to do that, we have to build on their skills. So I bet you if we go look at the TEKS, building on these non-literary text skills is super heavy in the 7th and 8th grade in preparation for those high school classes, which are going to have a lot of non-literary text. I mean, my daughter's constantly reading, and it's not even a lot for English class. It's like for science class and for history class. I mean, she's taking this like AP history class, which she hates. She's a senior, but they have to read so much. And so having skills in order to like digest that information, chunking the text, writing like a brief little sentence summary of what this paragraph or what this page was mostly about, so that when she goes back to reread, she can reformat and refresh those things. We teach them. And so going through these and making sure that you are comfortable with all of the different comprehension skills, identifying main ideas, supporting ideas, activities that we do in order to help them build those skills, summarizing, you know, we would do in 7th grade, give them a little piece and give them a block, and it said BME. And we told them, whenever you're summarizing, make sure that you get like a little bit from the beginning, what was it in the middle, and at the end, this is what it was mostly about. This is the summary, beginning, middle, and end, which was a strategy that we had. No, Marco. Okay. Okay, promote students' ability to use knowledge of text structures. We were just talking about that. We need to get the kids to be able to identify and locate information in a textbook quickly if they have a question. That has to do with knowledge of text structures, and being able to help them so that they can be better self-learners. Skimming and scanning, note-taking, outlining, study questions. We have to use these strategies with them, practice having them use the strategy. So build it in, have them make them their own study questions for each other, so they, begin to understand, how that works, how recall works, and what's important, identify what's important to study from. Standard 3, was that standard 3 still? Okay, so standard 3 is kind of lengthy, and as it should be, because it's really important, like really important. Next we have, this is about genres, different types of literature, literary genres, providing students opportunity to read diverse. So anytime you can bring diverse literature, do it. You are doing your students a disservice if they are only reading old white men in your high school classes. Like, unfortunately, I mean, I read some old white women also. I think I read 3 novels from a person of color. Frederick Douglass, the narrative of a slave. Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye and Alice Walker. That was it. Like everybody else was like either a white dude or a white woman. And I didn't even read any Latina stuff. And I grew up in the Valley, and there were so many excellent opportunities for them to teach us, you know, reading and writing concepts, metaphors, similes, foreshadowing, using people that looks like me, you know, people who I could have aspired to be. So very, very important for us to bring in all types, especially if you have a particular culture in your class. You want to validate those people in your classroom and make it to where this is about learning about us. Like, I understand this is just part of me. So that is where we will end for now. I think we went a little bit over time and I have someone, but I hope this was helpful.
Yes.
And let me know, like I said, print out your standards, go through your TEKS with a fine-tooth comb, annotate this text, write all over it, write little, like, make connections and whatnot, and then keep this text forever, because you literally will need it. You will need this text. Now, I wanted to say one more thing before I go, that Pinterest, I'm gonna let the dog out because he's gonna continue to irritate me with this high-pitched sounds. Sorry, I'm back. Okay, so Pinterest is a really great resource for you to find activities for your class. Let's see, short and choppy sentences. Let's just do that. Short and choppy. Why doesn't it say hairstyles? Sentences. Wait, you didn't spell that right. Sentences. All right. Short and choppy sentence combining. So, Marco. Oh my God, I'm sorry. The neighbor's dog is in my backyard. No. Come here, Marco. No, Nyla, get inside right now. Get inside right now. Inside, Nyla. Get inside, you. Good girl. Okay, sorry. So, ideas for your classroom. This was not a good example, but, like, for instance, if you were doing morphemic analysis activities, and some of these are kind of babies, but some of them are not, like teaching them how to, like, use a particular root, and this is a great one for morphemic analysis, for better words. And so what I would do before your pedagogy test is to look up the most common issues, like short and choppy sentences, like weak vocabulary or basic vocabulary, word choice, really, right? So diction, and then come up with, and already have them ready, like what activity would I use if that's what I see there, you know? So for the most common ones, and there aren't that many, like, so they could maybe the writer misidentifies the appropriate audience, right? Like, so their language might be very informal, but they're writing a letter to the principal or something like that, and they're like, hey, wait, you know, and that's not appropriate. So based on those common issues, have them already in mind so that you can write about them, you know, with confidence and not have to spend a whole bunch of time thinking about what could I do? Because I think that's what eats away time, is people sit there trying to think of like, okay, I have it now. I identified that they're short and choppy sentences, or they need like a variety of sentence structures. Okay, well, a sentence combining activity that you already have in mind is going to come in very, very handy. So that's how I want for you to prepare for that pedagogy exam. And in the folder, I have some what is it? Constructed, wait a minute. Some of these where you can practice doing the pedagogy, you know what I'm saying? And here's like one significant strength, one really good thing that they did, and then make sure that you provide that specific example, that evidence. And then a specific weakness in their response, and again, evidence from the text that illustrates why that doesn't work. And then describe one specific appropriate instructional activity that you could do, but then you also have to be sure to explain why it's going to cover that weakness. Go back and and this is why it's going to work to support the weakness in task 2. You have to connect those dots for them. So there's several practice responses here, and for you to practice with. You can send me your essay if you want, and I'll look at it, and I'll
Oh,
grade,
okay.
yeah, I'll grade it as a grader would as well. So that's it. Thank you so much, Victoria,
Thank you.
for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Yes, bye-bye.